Would I say that I'm unemployed or underemployed?
Yeah.
You mean underemployed?
Like you're still getting paid to do certain things. You got a couple buns in the oven there, but you don't have a full timer.
I don't know why it isn't like this for everyone all the time.
Because you won't be able to pay the bills.
Yeah, I mean, what if you were making enough money just doing whatever?
Leisure.
'Cause people seem to do it, like, we know hundreds of people that do it. They just, like, have a fucking YouTube channel, or they, like...
But I hate those people.
Yeah,
I
but...
just started watching Master of None.
I get it.
Which is awesome.
Apparently all my friends did last week, all at the same time.
And I really like it. And I'm watching, like, Aziz Ansari, who plays an actor in the show. And
Just hanging out.
They just hang out. They go
hanging out in New
They're
York.
day drinking constantly. They're at bars during the day.
And they live in New York. And
Yeah.
they afford their part. Okay.
So my life right now is pretty
Fancy.
much like that, but, like, without any friends.
You got a
So it's
little
kind of
kid.
not like that at all.
You got a 2-year-old, a 1.5-year-old.
Yeah. Who I chase around as she tries to break everything.
Welcome to another episode of The Boys and I. The Boys and I are sorry we weren't here last week. We had some stuff pop up.
Did we? Oh. Well, yeah, it happens.
One of the boys had stuff pop up,
Okay,
which
some-
everything seems... What is she looking at?
I don't know. Is she on camera? She's
I don't
majestic
know if
right
she's
now.
on camera.
She does look glorious.
Yeah, like a statue. Like one of those, what are those dog lions called in China?
Lion dogs.
Lion dogs.
Lion dogs. That was easy.
Yeah.
That's what you look like, old friend.
Shall we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, I'm Joel.
I'm your pal Jeremy.
I'm Brett. There's a large bird in this tree. We've kind of shifted our set about, what, 90 degrees?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I can see this beautiful songbird flopping around in the background. Just flew down into your yard. We're in Joel's backyard, per usual.
Yeah, you know, recording outside is real stupid from, like, an audio-visual perspective. But for us actually being here, it's great. So, you know, just know that your discomfort in looking at us and listening to us is measured against our comfort sitting out here in this beautiful weather in Los Angeles, drinking these cocktails that are amazing.
Can't reach.
That that Joel made. What the hell is this thing? It's glorious.
It's like a kind of healthy pina colada. It's rum, pineapple juice, some fresh squeezed lime, and then a floater of LaCroix coconut.
Every lifestyle decision Joel makes reminds me of what an ogre I am. This drink is so delicious and
It's-
so like perfectly crafted with a little berry at the bottom, and I'm just like, I drink gruel off the floor if you let me. Just like, damn, dude.
I mean,
Well,
there's
you
a
can
time
have
and
all
place for
this.
floor gruel.
Yeah, that's true too. Dana and I were driving past Jumbo's Clown Room early this week, and she asked me, "So this is where you used to go with Brett? What was the appeal?" And I had to try and explain to her the appeal of Jumbo's Clown Room.
That's such a tough conversation. You have to like, it's like the tug of war of like pulling in the drowned shipwreck of your single life onto the shore and being like, well,
Gaze
once
upon this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the full light of day. Well, we missed the first week of Wonder Woman talk, but that allowed us to bask in the afterglow and post-opening week talk back online.
It also gave me time to actually see it, because when you have a child, you can forget about going to opening weekends.
Yeah. I don't even have a kid and I didn't see it, so. But you know, we're not really. I mean, like, we'll talk about the movie.
Yeah, we're not going to really review
But-
the movie.
But it's the discussion surrounding the movie. All the glorious trash satellites circling Planet Wonder Woman is the topic of discussion.
And then later in the episode, we're going to get a little into sweet relationship talk, I think.
is it
Sweet
going to be sweet
relationship
relationship talk?
Or maybe
Yeah.
it'll be bitter. I mean, it depends on our positive, negative, cynical.
Three
nihilist
sweet boys
opinions.
talking about romance.
And then if we have time, we're also going to get into talking about when's a good time to get into crowdfunding, Patreon, Kickstarter, YouTube Super Chat, I guess.
Yeah.
I
Super chat.
hate that.
That's way better than just regular chat.
What does it
as far as I'm
imply,
concerned.
though? What is super chat?
Well, you know,
I mean, I know what super chat is, but like, what is super chat?
we're going to have to wait until the end of the episode to find out, I guess. That's a cliffhanger.
Wow.
Wait, no, that's not that at all.
See you next week.
What's in this?
It's working.
We're gonna. So let's kick it off. you read some interesting articles, Brett. I'm pointing at Brett this week about the reaction to Wonder Woman.
Yeah, well, unlike most weeks where I'm like angry, just like gesturing angrily at some article I read, I think our decision to talk about it this week was more about just like, at least as far as Jeremy and I are concerned, it's like I see it on Facebook, I see it everywhere, and it's just like the tone right now of conversation is so politicized that everything gets swept up in it, and everyone is vying for your mind power and your opinions and trying to either gaslight you or fucking convince you or persuade you or pull you into their personal cause. So there's no like neutral ground daily. It just like is slowly being enveloped by the ocean of politics. And so even something like Wonder Woman, which at some point, you might have been like, oh, that was a shitty comic book adaptation, or oh, I really enjoyed that, or oh, I was a Wonder Woman fan, I'm glad they did it well, is now, clashing fucking Battle of the Bastards style gender war, culture war of like, listen, we needed this to represent women well through the non-boner filter of traditional superhero blockbusters.
Which, what does that even mean?
Which, yes, that line, and then like, people vying where it's like Alamo Drafthouse, let's do a screening just for women, and Stephen Miller, like, I will be there. None will deny me from my genetic destiny to appear at a Wonder Woman screaming.
So you are upset with the fact that we can't just enjoy and critique a film as a film itself, as opposed to approaching it from a variety of different political angles and seeing it through that lens, not as a pure standalone piece of art.
I would say I'm exhausted by all of the white noise that surrounds everything, and then I think when you get down to it, you're right to be like, if you felt that way, and again, I haven't seen it, if you were like, I don't think Patty Jenkins is a good director, and I don't enjoy Wonder Woman, not having that filtered through the like, why are you trying to keep women from enjoying this? They wept with joy when they finally saw it brought to life. Who are you to even have an opinion in that? And I'm not saying it's that bad, but like, we were discussing it before the show, and you're like, dude, I'm hesitant to even like wade into those waters because you're bound to catch a fucking hook in your mouth at some point.
It is, yeah. I mean, we're basically we're all three aware that we're playing a dangerous game here in talking about Wonder Woman, and just think for a second.
Real risky boys.
Think for a second how crazy that sentence is.
Here's what I'll say. Well, first of all, obviously, we don't have any women on the podcast yet again. We actually reached out to a couple of our friends who were unable to make it here today. We were going to have our first guest. We are going to have guests.
Where will
we waited until 2 hours ago, and then we
did.
Texted.
I hit old Whitney Moore up, and I said, Whitney, we need you. She would have been a great guest. She had plans. It was like 2 hours ago.
But I would say, and I understand where you're coming from. Like, you want to be able to enjoy and critique a piece of art for being a piece of art. I get that. I do. And that there are other things that you can politicize that are maybe more or less important than this. I would argue that not all art, art has almost always been controversial, political, and has been open to interpretation from different factions who see it representing one thing or another. One of the ways that political discourse occurred in the Renaissance was through art. David's Death of Marat was a hugely controversial piece when it came out after the French Revolution. And while, yes, there are certain people who said, look at the play of light and shadow, why can't we appreciate this for the composition of the work or for the lack of composition thereof? There are other people who said, no, there is an inherent political message that is built into this piece of work, whether it's, again, a painting or a film. There is an inherent, and I would believe, and I do believe that there is an inherent political or message that's built into Wonder Woman.
Which is what? Having not seen it for my own edification.
So I understand. Like, I do understand like your exhaustion with it, but my response is, if something is built in, then we're almost obligated to have that discussion. And even if it's not built in,
yeah, but what do you think was the political message that was built in?
I haven't seen it. I'm truly asking.
I think that there's one of the messages that's built into the movie is that women have been traditionally underrepresented both on screen and as powerful, like in general, and as powerful women on screen. And this, in addition to like being the tale of Wonder Woman, a 80-year-old or 85, however old she is, year old character, that it's long past due that she, as one of the premier characters in American comic book history, has her own film. In addition to that, the message is, hey, here's a film with a powerful woman doing powerful things, putting men in their place, ignoring a lot of mansplaining and being told you can't go here and do this in the movie, and reflecting a lot of what's going on in our current political climate. I think by intent, it was intended to telegraph that.
Then why do they still have like a love story in it? Like, don't you think that was kind of unnecessary?
No, because it's part of the character.
Is it? I mean, it felt like not to get into review status, but the movie in total was basically the first Captain America movie, which was super forgettable to me. It was that exact same movie, and the love story was so kind of awkward to me. You know, I think like her character, if it was about her being empowered or whatever, and representative, I don't think she would go further than to have respect for Steve Trevor as a fellow combatant and not necessarily want to like have sex with him.
I mean, look, here's the deal.
When she like clarified that
we could have a conversation about the movie, and honestly, I feel like we could have a substantial conversation where you and I have an argument about this, because there are points that rebut both your assertion that this is basically Captain America. I think the movies are fundamentally about two different things, and I also think that the love story is not, while it might not be necessary.
It was like the love story in Thor.
I don't think it was necessary.
Why does a god just like all of a sudden fall in love with some human peon?
I don't think it's necessary to her character, and I agree. I think the Thor love story is somewhat obligatory because what's her name? Jane? I don't fucking know. Jane is Thor's love interest in the comics, so they just put her in. I feel like it was a lot more natural, and the reason that she fell in love with him, as opposed to any other man in this universe, is made clear through her character actions and her decisions. But again, I can give you reasons why, but this is not a movie review.
I feel like it was like retconned into the script after they were like, well, she has to really believe that love is more powerful than war. You know?
Is that in the movie?
Pretty much. I mean, the movie's corny, straight up. I don't mind saying
earnest. And see that's
it's a fucking superhero movie. How many superhero movies are coming out this year, for Christ's sake?
Oh, yeah.
Why do we have to talk about every superhero movie like it's super important?
Was the quote-unquote boner vision of a normal... Let's just say Guardians of the Galaxy, for example. Was there a radical removal of boner vision in regards to the female characters of
I don't
Wonder
think
Woman?
I don't think there's been any objectification of female characters in Marvel movies that I can think of. Guardians, can you?
Yes, a little bit in Guardians, but not.
How so? When?
Not with the superheroes. There is some alien objectification when especially in the first movie, Star-Lord has got a girl that he's banging, and I also think that early Red Widow, Black Widow, whatever,
was more sexified.
Was way more sexified.
Yeah, but that was like 15 years ago or something like that.
I think she's way more sexified than she currently is. But I think that, look, Anne Hathaway Catwoman was barely a character. She was a woman who was poured into a latex or whatever suit that looked amazing, and she looked amazing, but like that was why she was in the movie to me. There was no character reason to put her in the movie. Whereas I do believe that there are character reasons for Gamora to be in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Do you think that that it's just an element of strong female characters being so absent from action films and blockbuster films that female audiences cannot help but be moved by the fact that we've kind of stepped one step beyond it? And
yes, I think purely like look at the online react and I got the shitty mic this week, so I gotta like way down here to. I think my first half of this is gonna be totally muffled.
That's usually my slouching mic. I think I have yours. And
yeah.
That's why I'm sitting like
you
a prince
right
now. I'm like, oh.
I mean, just look at the online reaction alone to this movie, especially from women. I mean, and from allies, has been so strong. Not just because it was a pretty good superhero. It was a pretty good superhero movie. And I don't know how you haven't seen it yet. I'd be curious to see what.
It wasn't bad. I mean, it was better than Guardians 2, I think.
I thought it was better than Guardians 2 as well, and I also think it was better than all of the Marvel setup movies except Iron Man 1.
You thought it was better than Ant-Man?
Shockingly.
I liked Ant-Man.
I like Doctor Strange. Anyway, in addition to that, so we invited Dana to come on. I invited Dana to come on to the podcast. She has a migraine and she had just taken a headache pill, so she didn't want to come on and be all loopy.
Yeah.
Being loopy is how we like it.
Yeah,
Well,
come on.
she didn't want to misrepresent. She feels she didn't want to misrepresent her point of view. But what she told me was that
I misrepresent mine every episode.
Yeah.
she's a lot more deliberate than you are.
Yeah.
I feel very conflicted
Cut me
because I feel like I want to be an ally and I want to be supportive of this conversation, but I'm at a point where I just can't take any more superhero bullshit, and it's so cynical and it's so like everywhere, and it's just one after the other after the other after the other. It just doesn't feel like as meaningful.
But I think that is why, for a lot of people, it is more meaningful, is because it's been one after the other after the other after the other, and this one stars a woman, stars a lot of women, was directed by a woman, and is explicitly about female empowerment.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
And in that respect, it stands out.
I guess you can't really argue with that. I mean,
Brett, you said something earlier that I thought was interesting. I have not seen Monster. Have you seen Monster?
Yeah.
So,
I
and you
have.
said, and I don't know if this was your actual opinion, but you said that Patty Jenkins is not that great of a director, and you didn't like it.
Oh no, I like
film.
Monster.
Okay.
But go on, please.
No, I was curious if you liked Monster and how you think of her as a director in general.
No, I just mean I think there are people who are underwhelmed by whatever, any director, right? It's like you have a right to be like, oh, I don't like her directing style, whatever. Fine.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that people have that right. I was just curious if you felt that way, what your problems with her were.
No, and I can't speak to that, but I the rare voice on Facebook that I saw where someone was like, I forget what his exact quote was, but he was like, the quiet stress of hold on, let me find it. I don't want to misquote it. Let's return to this briefly while I look this up.
I thought Monster was pretty great, but there wasn't anything about it that would make me go like, oh, this person should direct a superhero movie. That said, doing a superhero movie is pretty much paint by numbers. It's really hard to fuck it up, I think, because it's all CG anyways. Like, what are they actually directing? None of the action is real.
What about Christopher Miller and Lord? What about their previous television experience led you to believe that they would be good at superhero movies either? And again, that is exactly.
I think it makes no difference. I think the conversation as to whether or not she was, the right person for the job is kind of like who's to say who is or isn't the right person for the job. Obviously, she was competent enough to do a great job with it. The movie was beautiful. It was shot really well. Like, I'm a big fan of Greek mythology, so I really enjoyed the stuff in the beginning of the film quite a bit.
The one of the things I didn't like about it was the Snyderification of the DC universe. And again, not to get too much into her.
But that's not her fault.
Well, exactly. It's totally not her fault. She was bound by this universe that he's been building that has to be tonally compliant.
What's the what in regards of this?
Just the general sort of like dark, thick malaise that hangs over everything.
And the way that the battle, like one of the action scenes in the movie is really well done. Like very clearly shot, has a purpose, is good, is fun to watch. And then one of the action scenes looks like Zack Snyder CG DC Injustice fighting game bullshit.
And every time she makes an attack move, it goes do 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 and plays the theme for like a few seconds, and then it goes back into the regular score. And that is a theme that fits with no other score. It's super jarring.
It stands out a lot. Yeah, I mean,
it's really weird.
They don't have John Williams working on that score. That's for
yeah.
Sure. I think for a lot of the audience, it was made for a variety of reasons. And one of the reasons that it was made is because there has never been a female superhero. There's been very little representation of both female superheroes on camera.
What are you talking about? There's never been one.
Yeah, there absolutely have
lead
been.
Superheroes.
Yeah, Catwoman.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
does that count? I mean,
Supergirl's got her TV show right now.
It's not a movie.
Okay, fine.
But
I bet.
So my
Barbarella.
So my point is, I liked the movie. I thought it was pretty good. I don't think it was a tremendous, transcendent work of art. Yeah. But I'm not the core audience for that movie, and the core audience for that movie did react to it and did feel that way about it. And I don't see what the problem is with dissecting it from that point of view.
I get why people feel the way that they do about it, and I understand that it has nothing to do with the actual film itself, and I kind of feel the same way, actually, to be honest, when I go to the Disney store with my daughter. And it used to be where there was just like all these princess costumes on the girl side, and on the boy side there's all the superhero stuff
And pirate stuff.
Yeah, all this cool shit, and like the girls had princess shit. The end, right? Now they've kind of made it where there are like legit superhero things for girls, and you know there still is like the princess stuff if they want to do that, but like it's kind of available to all now. And my daughter's only like a year and a half old, you know, but she really gravitates towards the like actiony stuff, strangely, and like you know it's not something you can really control.
It's not strange considering.
She's feral.
Yeah,
like
she is an Azevedo
teacher.
She's a wild kid, and she's like, and she wants like action. She goes straight for like Baby Groot, you know, and she dances to it and stuff, you know. That's like she really likes that stuff, and I really am pleased by the idea that she's going to grow up in a world where this stuff eventually becomes commonplace, and we don't have to politicize something as meaningless as a superhero movie when the actual true meaning of it is in that it is now normalizing something that has been absent in a way that is really shocking. Like, how did we get a fucking Ant-Man movie before we got a Wonder Woman movie? It's fucking crazy.
To jump back in, that is why like the first one has to be politicized, because it is the first one.
Yeah,
and like that's why it's important.
I get it. I think the Alamo thing is actually really fun. The way that they've kind of trolled people with it has been good for their business, and it's been a lot of fun for their fans. You know, people that don't get it are not the kind of people that I want to support or be around anyways.
Do you feel like financially it took this long for people to be really sold on that, by virtue of like, here's the whole universe, we've set it up, it's an important, unavoidable part of the story, now here's Wonder Woman?
I think if this movie
had... money is a part of this so far as well, and we didn't really touch on that, but...
I think if this movie had come out, as it is, had come out after Iron Man, or after, you know, Iron Man and Thor had come out or whatever, if this movie had come out then, 10 years ago, it would do almost as well, maybe not quite as well, but like I don't think it's an issue.
I don't think it would have been as sophisticated. I don't think the studio would have taken it very seriously, and I don't think they would have marketed it very much, because I don't think studio executives were convinced that there really were female audiences for this type of content at that time. I think this is something that people are coming to the realization of now, and that it's become more culturally ubiquitous to know and understand these things. Sure. They don't have to keep explaining to you like who these superheroes are and stuff. Like, everybody kind of knows.
But it's fucking Wonder Woman. If you asked anybody on Earth to name a female superhero 10 years ago, before Marvel, before X-Men movies, before all this shit, they would have said Wonder Woman. And
knowing and caring is not the same thing.
I totally agree with you.
I wouldn't have thought an Ant-Man movie would do well either. Well, but, you know, that's where we are now, because that's the culture of whatever.
Because they've primed us to be there. And, like, I mean, I agree with you that it's a studio executive thing. Like, people are idiots, you know? And I think that even now, there was not a lot of advertising. You didn't see a ton of trailers for Wonder Woman. How many trailers did you see for Guardians 2? There was the teaser trailer. There was the first trailer. There was this like fucking Super Bowl trailer or whatever. They make all these like specific trailers for specific events for all of these movies. Star Wars is going to have 1 million of them. Wonder Woman. It wasn't until early buzz got out that this was going to be actually a good movie that Warner Brothers.
I don't think that had anything to do with the fact that it's a woman. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that their last couple of movies were huge failures and were like universally derided by everybody.
It's a major studio. The amount of push that they put behind fucking Suicide Squad, which was a disaster, versus the amount. Like,
and then Suicide Squad was also a disaster before this. I think it's very easy to like be like it was this one thing, when in reality it's like, okay, there's a lot of things at play. Let's respect the fact that. And that's my thing. I think it's my final thought on it is just. This whole discussion and stuff, it's just like, I just want people to leave each other alone. If this for you, if this for you was like sweet, I've been waiting my whole life to feel this, and you go to the movie and you fucking cried, then like just leave that person alone, let them have it. But then if someone goes, I don't like Patty Jenkins and I'm not into it, that doesn't make them fucking anti-feminist agenda, then like just leave each other alone. You don't have to go to the fucking all-girls screening of Wonder Woman. Who cares? What do you get out of that? Just bothering people? Just leave each other alone. Like, that's what exhausts me. It's like, what did you prove, Stephen Miller? That like, ugh, I have to participate. It's like, why? Did you enjoy it? And the idea that like, oh well, you think you're a badass because you want to be like Wonder Woman, but like I could beat you up, and it's just like, just leave each other alone. It's just not worth. It's not worth. There's so many better uses of everyone's respective energy that like, just leave each other alone. That's it. It's very exhausting. I haven't seen it.
We're at 40 minutes. We're absolutely not going to get into one of our topics.
Let's pick a topic then.
Patreon.
Spin the wheel.
Relationships.
What do you feel like you have more to say about? Or we could just
relationships, probably.
That's such a big topic to do with this much time on the clock.
Let's do Patreon.
Yeah, but here's the problem. Well, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying. I think I think you could briskly move through Patreon, whereas like the relationship topic is a big one. I think your personal input and like personal stories will come into it, and I would hate to cut that short. Whereas like Patreon, it's like, okay, we could talk.
Yeah,
about
I don't have a personal
what
story
we spent
with
money
Patreon.
on in like 4 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, so that's
Patreon
my
it
vote.
is.
All right.
Hey, it's teased for a future episode. Body dysmorphia and
Yeah.
when to get married coming very soon.
We're solving problems. We're making lives better.
Are we?
Making my life better.
I
I
feel-
have fun. I get drunk on the weekdays, and I get to do a podcast.
I feel like I just made my life worse criticizing Wonder Woman.
It's gonna come back and bite you in the ass.
Whatever.
This cocktail made my life better.
It is literally the definition of a sacred cow right now.
Yeah, it
for
is.
sure.
And that's what I mean. It's like, why?
How
Why does
dare
it
you
have
call
to
Wonder
be...
Woman a cow?
Oh Jesus.
Oh no.
Uh,
Okay, Joel, this is your topic. I let you kick it off here.
Well, it's my topic, but I did zero research on it this week.
But so like, as Joel pitched it to me, it was like the idea of like, in the culture right now, especially on YouTube, right? Ad apocalypse, whatever. A lot of creators are like, okay, well, how do I get back in control of the income coming into my channel, right? And so for a lot of people, that answer was Patreon and figuring out that thing. And that's been a thing that the Twitch culture, that's really been the predominant Twitch culture for a while, with donations. And then, you know, now with this expanded Twitch thing where they just expanded it, where now it's not just the $5 subscription. You can have like $10 tiers. You can have $25 tiers with special emoticons and whatever. But for a lot of creators, and especially in comics right now, I see a ton of this, especially people I follow, where it's like, okay, I dabble. I got one series on Image, but this is my passion project. I run it through Kickstarter or a web comic. Whatever. We'll get into the details. But no matter what, it's an option for a lot of people. But I also think it's really being overused by a lot of people too. And so Joel's question is sort of like, when is it right? Like, what's the line?
Right. I felt until the ad apocalypse that Patreon had been really cynically used by a lot of YouTubers to not create additional content, but to supplement their income. Now, I've sort of been reassessing that since YouTube and its advertisers, through its algorithm, have decided that not every video is good to put ads on, and people are losing a lot of money and whatnot. Ooh. Hello, is that a night butterfly? Or is that just a common moth?
it's dusty like a moth, but we could pretend.
Yeah, it's a night butterfly.
yeah, I'm gonna say butterfly.
Can I eat this, by the way?
It's cherry.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. It's a
What'd you think it
cherry,
was?
baby.
I thought maybe it was like a elderberry from the mandrake root that I
Wouldn't put it past
precious to look at, but do not partake.
So in terms of Patreons, I have supported a few Patreons, a couple of comics, a couple of artists, and several video games, and oh no, I kickstarted that, never mind. I embarrassingly will cop to having kickstarted the Ouya.
Oh.
Yeah, I did it.
Hey, you're a dreamer, man.
But but I think I do feel like reassessment whiplash, basically, because in the last 2 months, I've gone from one extreme position to kind of another. And I do think that for a lot of channels that, and I'm specifically talking about YouTube creators here, that have been hit hard by the adpocalypse, there needs to be a really reliable source of income. Now, at one of my previous jobs at Funhouse for Rooster Teeth, they have a really ideal business set up where they're not reliant on YouTube, and they haven't been ever. And that's really wonderful for them. For them, YouTube is like extra. It's a little bit extra.
Because they're tied in through the Rooster Teeth.
They have the Rooster Teeth First subscription service, which is awesome, and I am a member of, actually. I never check my account. I just watch videos on it.
And we've been dabbling in that, too. We have, like, shows that are on there, and so, it's nice.
But I do feel like now there is a venue for people who have been hit hard by the apocalypse. And the problem is that a lot of these creators had already been putting in full time into YouTube to make their videos, to edit them, to get them up on time, to have a regular schedule, to create, thumbnails and banner art and all this bullshit that they have to do in order just to have a healthy YouTube channel. And the problem with Patreon is that you kind of have to have these similar to what we were talking about, these tiers of donations that allow you to give a little bit of extra to people who are giving you more money, which makes things a lot more difficult for these people, because if they're just maintaining what they had prior to this, how on earth are they going to be able to create more content or give additional value?
You're acting like guys at that level don't have people working for them that they assign that stuff to.
Some
like,
do and some don't.
I would say most don't, and I don't know. If even if they were making money hand over the fist, and they're doing a Patreon and people are giving them money, like, who cares? Who's that hurting? If you've got a whale that wants to send you money because they like your content, like, who cares? Who's that hurting? Is that hurting somebody?
Well, I felt like it again up to 2 or 3 months ago. Whenever I felt like it was a cynical cash grab, where it was I'm already making. A lot of these people make tens of thousands of dollars a month on YouTube. Tens of thousands of dollars a month on YouTube, and they would set up a Patreon, and they would say, "Oh, for $5 a month, you get to like read my tweets first," or some real bullshit. And sure, I get it. Like, if you feel good donating, that's like, you bring that value to it. But I always saw it from the creator point of view of being really cynically like, how am I going to get more money out of these people?
I mean, I think a lot of people on Twitch just donate because they think that they're friends with the Twitch streamer.
I think a lot of people
they feel like they have a relationship that maybe they do, but probably they don't.
I think a lot of people on Twitch or Lively donate because they when they donate, people say, "Oh, thanks, Squabnob600, you're the coolest," and then they just move right on. But they love hearing their name.
Yeah. And you can argue it's a live performance, but the whole culture of Twitch, obviously, there's like very few people. It's like, you watch Dr. Disrespect or something, it's like, oh, there's a performance that I would be like, okay, yes, and I do. But like, someone in their living room, it's like,
yeah.
Do you subscribe to anybody on Twitch?
I do, but they're people I know.
Like, you give them money?
Yeah, I mean, I have like subscriptions. Dr. Disrespect is probably the only person I've ever made an actual donation to. Like, I've subscribed to people I know who are streamers out of like, oh, it's like a friendly support thing or whatever. But like, he is someone who I wish the trend would move towards, of like,
yeah, he was always great. He's a character.
Yeah.
He's a character,
yeah.
And he is, and he it's unpredictable, and he's put time in it and production value, and for too many people, it's too easy to just opt in and be like, I'm just doing it too. And it's like, why is that so?
Who
rare?
cares though? Like, I don't know. I have zero problem with it, really. Like, people doing Patreons and stuff. If you want to donate to our Patreon, go ahead. Let's put a Patreon on there. Like,
for new drink recipes. Joel will.
Yeah, we'll put up Joel's.
A month.
We'll put up Joel's drink recipes.
You could have this, and this is really good.
Yeah, if you give us enough money, we're like, damn. Like, I don't know what that number is. We'll say your name or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't have
some
to
bullshit.
On
it doesn't matter.
I'm not driving. You give me another.
Yeah, buddy.
Where it bothers me is in a couple instances. One being like, remember when Zach Braff was like off of Garden State? Yep. And this is a dude that has like fucking tons of money. He's got a show with like 11 seasons or however the fuck many, syndicated across the world forever in perpetuity. Yep. He's got a movie that was really successful in the indie market. Like, everyone loves this movie. Everyone bought the soundtrack. And he could walk into any studio in Los Angeles, this guy, and be like, give me money for a movie. But instead, he asked the audience for it, right?
Or he can self-finance.
Yeah, and you know what the audience gets for it? Nothing. Really, like,
but from their perspective,
a copy
they get a
copy of the movie or like a T-shirt or whatever
his vision was so precious.
Is nothing.
It couldn't be compromised by dealing with the studios.
Oh, like the studios compromised Garden State, for fuck's sake. And and then all the money just like goes to Zach Braff, presumably, right? Because where else could it go?
Yeah,
it's like
you're
all
certainly
these.
not seeing an
It's like all
accountant
these like
breakdown.
fucking video games that like I've donated to like 4 or 5 video games, and either they're trash or they never come out, or they're so overfunded that they like don't even know what the fuck to do with it, which is what's going to happen, I think, to Pillars 2. Pillars of Eternity 2.
Yeah.
They got so much money for it, it's unfucking believable, and it is literally just a little point and click fucking RPG thing. It doesn't need it. What do they get?
Add voice chat or whatever if they hit that.
They're adding all kinds of nonsense.
$55,000 mark.
Should really just go into
There
DLC or
there is a
something, I
point
guess.
at which like too much money actually becomes a detriment, I
Yeah.
think, to your project. But yeah, I mean, like Mighty Number 9, you play that, or Turd. It sucked. I don't know. Sometimes I think the studios have a certain kind of oversight, and I think that this kind of oversight applies to most artistic things. For example, the music industry used to have some sort of gatekeeper, right, that would say this is good, this is important, this is not important, this is not good, right? Pop music has always been pretty stupid, we can all agree, for the most part, but there are some classic, pop music jams that become fewer and farther between as time goes on. Is that because we're growing older and you can say like, oh, you're fucking old, what the fuck do you know, right? Like, okay, there just seems to be
Yes.
a lot more boy bands, and disposable one-hit wonders than there ever were, right? And there seems to be fewer sort of like Nirvanas and Dr. Dre's and such. And I think part of the reason for that is everybody can self-finance or crowdfund or whatever, anything at all, right? And you can go from being on Instagram to like selling out shows. You can go from being on YouTube, making a couple videos, whatever, to like making a feature film. And I don't know that like every single person should be making feature films or recording albums or making comic books or doing any of this stuff. I don't know.
It sounds crazy to say, but there is an oversaturation of even good things that couldn't possibly be consumed, much less mediocre things that people can.
Yeah, I mean, how do you build your business with a model like Netflix has, where they're spending billions of dollars on stuff and just throwing it out and being like, our algorithm says this is gonna work, and then it doesn't. And they're like, I don't know what to do without my algorithm. Oh fuck, right? And there's just like there's thousands of shows, there's thousands of albums. You used to have to know like 20, 30 bands that were important. Now you need to know, put 2 more zeros on that. Thousands of bands. There are so many fucking games on Steam.
That is the current state of all media. There's so much quote unquote television now. There is broadcast, there is cable, there are OTT platforms, there is YouTube, which is basically channel. Like a lot of them are basically shows.
So many thousands of hours of content on platforms you've never heard of,
Yeah.
will never hear of, will never see. In your mind, for me, I share the same, I guess, values about it, where it's like, again, the Zach Braff or some of these millionaire YouTubers who are just like, well, why would I pay for anything when I can just keep doing it? And it's like, there's the argument that like maybe some other people that money, those donations could have gone to. I don't know. It's so arbitrary that it's hard to really argue against it, except from like, don't you feel guilt? Like much in the vein of like streamers, where it's like, oh, here's my wish list or whatever. It's like, that doesn't bother you. Like, I don't know. It's just a values thing. It's hard to really like.
That's why
make
I think
an argument.
a lot of it is and has been a cynical cash grab by people. Like again, to use the Zach Braff example, I was so pissed off when I heard about that, because he's basically like, I get it. I wouldn't want to put up $5 million of my own personal money either. I wouldn't want to. But you're asking people to give you something to get nothing in return except for the feeling of, I'm Zach Braff's buddy. I'm an investor.
Yeah, it's not like you get points on the back end.
Right, exactly.
I trust in your vision so explicitly that I need to help you deliver this thing with my money. And what did you ever see that? I don't even.
It'd be fine. It'd be fine if you maxed out at the cost of like a ticket or DVD or something or Blu-ray, but like when you have like levels of $2,500 or $10,000, that just feels like a little bit of an exploitation.
And then you become a producer on the film. I mean, and this is what people thought. You become a producer on the film, and that allows you entree into Hollywood.
Producers get money. Producers don't spend money.
Nope.
They
And
get
really,
money.
like, what is
they
that?
get a set visit. They
What
get
does
a
that
dinner
title
with Zach.
get you? You put on your fucking LinkedIn. You're like, I helped crowdfund Zach Braff's movie, and they're like, well, I never saw your movie, and what did you do? Nothing. Great.
Also,
Worthless.
that's the other thing, is that what was that movie?
Yeah,
Does
that's what I
anyone
mean.
remember what that fucking movie was?
No. Oh, this fucking brilliant vision that people had to spend money on. Like, what was it even called? I couldn't even tell you. Garden State, I remember.
Yeah.
And you're right, and that's that same like gatekeeper thing. It's like it's pros and cons, but in cases
Didn't
like
they do
that,
like
it's
a Veronica Mars movie or
They
something?
did.
Like who
That
saw
one-
that?
Who saw that?
That one kind of annoyed me too. I know a lot of people that saw it and liked it, but that one kind of annoyed
They
me.
didn't need to crowdfund it. It was just it's so cynical when that happens. I will say, this is directly in conflict with my previous argument, right? Which is that there's too much content. Like maybe you weren't supposed to make the content. If you couldn't do it like through the normal channels, maybe you weren't cut out for it, right?
Sure.
That is a possible way to look at it. Another way to look at it is our economy is super fucked, right? Like it's fucked, and the best you can hope for outside of entertainment is to be a wage slave anyways, right? And get up and go to work at some shitty job that you hate, right? If you can get away with getting a bunch of people to pay you money to like make some show or video game or comic book or whatever, even if it's shitty, and it usually is, even if it is, who fucking cares?
That's
like
capitalism,
that's
baby.
capitalism at work. That's that's how it works in the world.
It's the
and-
have-nots complaining about the people who've made it work.
Look,
and
I'd rather-
I'm mad at someone who's a fucking millionaire and doesn't want to pay for a new channel. Fucking take this, whatever. It's like, okay, fine. Maybe it is. I don't
I'd
know.
rather those people are happy and they have a job, honestly. Like if they're happy and they have a job and their job is something that's being funded by a crowd, whether it's making a YouTube video or anything else, what's the harm in it really? Is it hurting you?
Joel hears his dog. His dog's been chewing on something for like
yeah,
5 minutes.
it's a mysterious object because nobody knows what it could be.
Yeah, something from nature out here. No, and you're right. Like, I think it's my final thoughts on it, I guess, is that it's a personal thing. I've donated to projects that only where I was like, well, I really care about this project, or like, hey, this is a really cool way. I think the difference that you feel when it's like, maybe it's, for example, like an artist that you're like, cool, I'm gonna help support this amazing webcomic, versus like some of those video games where you're like, I'm just curious, sure, why not, and then you're disappointed. It's like the feeling you feel between those two types of donations, I think, says a lot about the value.
And in terms of the artist, the reason that I've supported many artists is because I feel like this person will have a future as an artist in some capacity, as a game artist, or as a storyboard artist for movies, or whatever it is. They just need to get past that first hurdle of getting their job and being able to sustain themselves while they're continuing to do their art. And I'm cool with that.
I don't
or
even
if that's it. If it's like you're paying your rent and you're doing the art that everyone loves.
Sure.
Fuck, great.
How do you feel about the people that just take the money and run?
How do I feel about someone that robs the bank? I'm like, hey.
I mean, if you
good for
can pull off your grift, I mean,
Yeah. I have.
you gotta live with that.
That's how I
Yeah.
felt a lot of
Yeah.
YouTubers up until 3 or 4 months ago. That's how I felt about them, is that they were just like taking money for no additional.
How
Siesta
are
Lotto, you know what? You get away
Yeah.
with it. Fuck it.
how are SVOD
They're
platforms
criminals.
any different?
Yeah.
They
no.
give you content.
They give you T-shirts and posters and shit. Like it's the same thing. They give you the same content you're
If
gonna
they
get
give-
I don't need
anyways.
anyone to give me content.
Yeah.
What is-
Well, oddly, I don't need anyone to give me posters. I have
Yeah,
plenty of
well,
posters, thank you.
I'd much rather content than shit I throw away at every convention.
That's
Yeah,
what they give
absolutely.
away for most of these like Kickstarters and
Yeah.
everything. It's like
Yeah.
T-shirts, posters,
Here's a
whatever.
T-shirt, you'll turn
Like-
into a gym tank if you're lucky.
Full screen, Rooster Teeth, whatever. All these SVOD platforms, like
Let's talk about-
Legendary has one. Don't they just like turn around and make that content available after 72 hours or something? Anyway,
Some do, some don't. Some
Not
shows
the
are
not the
exclusive.
Couch Hop first exclusive shows. Boy, you can only watch those.
Nope.
Really
They're not paying us. They're not paying, and until they pay us, which they're welcome to do.
Hey, you know what else I hate? Subscription boxes. What about? Oh, hey, I'm gonna pay $10 a month to get a bunch of bullshit. I'm just gonna throw in the trash. You don't need so much shit in your life.
Yeah.
That's
are we talking about?
stupid.
Are we talking about
Plastic
like Loot
BS.
Crate and
I'm
stuff?
talking about Loot Crate. I'm talking about Rooster Teeth gold boxes. I'm talking about those Japanese boxes. Any subscription box. I don't care. I'll go on record.
What about like Blue Apron?
Blue Apron? At least
That's
you're like,
different.
I'm
You're
gonna
eating
teach
it.
myself
I made a
to
Blue
cook.
Apron tonight
How
before I
was-
came over.
Nope. When Blue Apron sponsors us, we can talk about it.
Blue
When
Apron,
Blue
I could
Apron-
get behind. Now
when
there's
Blue
a brand
Apron pays for it.
I could get
I'll tell you
Fuck!
whether or not I liked it.
All right, let's wrap this shit up.
Okay.
Do we need to do final thoughts on this?
I think we kind of
Kinda covered it.
Clear, yeah. I feel good about
Yeah.
it.
Are we gonna be back next week?
Let's try.
I've got less of a hellish week next week, so I'm down to go. And
Oh,
then
next week
my
is
last week on this
E3.
job.
Ooh, let's try for it though. I think I
Oh,
can
Yeah.
make
Are
it
you
work.
going to any hot E3? Oh God, E3.
Dude,
I am
fuck-
skipping E3
I
for the
wish
first
we'd
time in like
remembered.
10 years.
Me too.
So
I'm
I
jealous.
am
so
I
happy
am
about
not
it.
going to even one convention. I'm not doing E3. I'm not doing VidCon. I'm not doing Comic
I got
Con.
invited to one party. I kind of don't want to go.
Just fucking.
I'm not going.
If I could convince my brothers at Couch Up to not go to E3, I would have. And I kind of tried. We're going for
Have they
like
been to
one
E3
day.
before?
Yeah, but they want to go. Whatever. But I like parties. Someone hit me up. Daniel Poorman, who's at RT now, was like, "Hey, you going to E3 parties?" I'm like, I could not care less with any part of my body about E3 convention parties. It's like when you're stuck in another city
Yeah.
or at PAX and you got nothing else to do, great. But here, it's like I live here. Who cares?
And
I
they're
wanna go
never.
Home. I don't want to drive across town to get drunk and then drive home or take an Uber or whatever the fuck.
Oh,
it
but
is.
you saw stilt walkers. Oh, and it's like I don't. What? Who cares?
They're never gonna be quite as decadent as our machinima. Hey, let's blow everybody's fucking money parties.
Yeah. The
Those were
Cinnamon
really
Toast
fun.
Crunch sponsor.
Yeah.
Woo.
At the,
Cruella.
That, yeah,
Cruella.
they had Cruella playing, and people were like throwing cinnamon toast crunch or some shit like up in the air, like it was like money. It was like raining down everywhere.
It was really
It
dumb.
was real
was a
stupid.
real dumb
Everyone
age,
was
but-
super drunk.
It's fun while it lasted.
Yeah, I think what's his name brought those like grinders.
Oh,
Like always.
Shane.
Yeah, Shane would always bring these boys and girls in like little metal bikinis and shit, and they would put grinders and they would make sparks.
I never understood. Like, I understand
It's real
hula.
strange.
I don't like hula hooping.
Yeah.
I understand that as a skill.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be able to like
Yeah.
hoop multiple hoops and do all
Yeah.
sorts of. Grinding is literally just wearing a piece of clothes and using a power tool.
Yeah.
It's
not a
edgy,
skill.
dude.
It's so edgy.
Yeah.
They should release a Reaper skin that's just him like. Anyways.
Yeah, I wish we'd remembered it was E3 because I have a lot of opinions on E3. Maybe we can talk about it next week. If
Do we want maybe?
if we do alt E3 at my house.
I've been at E3 long enough to have some thoughts on that as well. Maybe next week we'll talk about E3. We'll talk about body dysmorphia. We'll talk about you know when is a good time, if ever, to get married, perhaps. Stuff like this.
Yeah, we'll see how we're feeling.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
But yeah, thank you for watching The Boys and I and listening to The Boys and I.
We are on Twitter at the Goddamn Boys. If you're listening to this on iTunes
Or SoundCloud.
or SoundCloud, be sure. Well, mainly on iTunes. Be sure to give us a rating and a review because that actually helps us surface in their algorithm or whatever. It really does help us out a lot.
Yeah, and if you want to send us money that we're gonna just blow on bullshit, don't let me stop you.
We'll put it to use.
Yeah, we'll buy more. We'll buy a new blender.
Should we monetize? So this is before we go.
Oh, real talk.
We have not monetized our YouTube channel. We haven't put commercials on our videos. Should we do that?
I thought we already did that.
No, we explicitly
I thought we did it last week.
We I made sure that we got the ability to do that,
Oh,
but
okay.
we have not done that.
I mean,
Yeah, maybe when some people are watching, that would be a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fucking watch our video. Oh,
there
wait.
are no ads, so I mean, whatever. But if you see one, please God watch.
All right, we're
All right.
done.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week. We're gonna try real hard for that to not be a lie.
Thanks
Yeah.
for watching. We love you.
Bye.
See you in hell.